You're pretending. You know it. And the worst part is that you've gotten so used to doing it so well that even you believe it. Every time you smile when something inside you breaks. Every time you take credit away from yourself. Every time you pretend you don't care about standing out. You are slowly destroying yourself. You are betraying yourself. Not out of modesty, not out of politeness, not out of genuine humility. You do it out of fear. Fear that they will hate you if you shine. Fear that they will reject you if you show your worth. Fear that they will label you arrogant if, for a second, you dare to acknowledge your greatness. But here comes the fucked up part. That false humility not only doesn't protect you, it's killing you. It makes you invisible. It erases you. Carl Jung didn't say it outright, but he made it clear in every word he wrote. What you deny enslaves you. What you accept transforms you. Do you know what that means? That every time you hide your power, that power turns against you. That every time you pretend to be less, you end up being less. You think being humble is noble, right? That it's a virtue, that it's the right thing to do. But what you're doing is not humility. It's self-annihilation. Jung spoke about the shadow. That part of you that you hide because society taught you it was unacceptable. And do you know what hides the most? Ambition, power, the desire to stand out. Since you were little, you were taught to lower your head, not to call attention to yourself, to say thank you even if they gave you nothing, to downplay your shine, to minimize your achievements so as not to make others uncomfortable. And you believed it. But there's something no one told you, that by hiding your light, you make darkness's job easy. Because when the valuable stay silent, the mediocre shout. When you withdraw, those who have nothing to offer take center stage. And then you wonder why the world is full of garbage. It's not because there's no talent. It's because talent has been trained to make itself small. The shadow, according to Jung, isn't just the bad. It's also all the good you repressed out of fear. All your genius, your charisma, your power, your leadership, your ability to transform the world, locked in a cage because of a lie. That being visible is a sin. That shining is arrogant. That being great is selfish. Lieutenant, do you want to know what's really selfish? Pretending to be less than you are when you could be inspiring others. Hiding your light when you could be lighting the way. Letting fear dictate who you are. That, yes, is selfishness, but cowardly selfishness, disguised as virtue. And do you know what's the most ironic? The more you minimize yourself, the more you feed your own frustration. Because your soul can't breathe in that prison. Because every time you deny your potential, you create resentment. Not against others, against yourself. And that resentment, sooner or later, leaks out. It turns into cynicism, envy, criticism, into that voice that judges those who dare because you didn't dare. The one who pretends humility becomes the enemy of everyone who doesn't hide. And that breaks you inside. Because you know you could be more. You know it every time you see someone stand out and it bothers you. Not because they do it badly. It bothers you because you could too. But you convinced yourself you shouldn't. See the poison? You're not being humble. You're betraying your essence. Jung said that the path to individuation, that is, becoming who you really are, goes through integrating your shadow. Not eliminating it, not denying it, integrating it, embracing it, recognizing it. That means accepting that you have power, that you can shine, that you can influence, that you can be feared, respected, even hated, but never ignored. And here's the most uncomfortable point. Are you willing to be hated for being you? Or would you rather be loved for a mask? Because that is the choice you make every time you pretend humility. You choose likability over authenticity, acceptance over purpose, comfort over impact. And the price is very high, because the world doesn't reward the one who hides. It rewards the one who exposes themselves, the one who dares, the one who says, "This is who I am," even if it bothers you, the one who doesn't ask permission to be great. Think of someone you admire, someone who left a mark. Did they do it pretending to be small? Or did they dare to take the space that belonged to them? History doesn't remember those who played humble. It remembers those who embodied their greatness without apologies. And no, this isn't about being arrogant. It's about being real, about stopping shrinking yourself to fit in places you don't deserve, about stopping sacrificing your voice so others won't feel uncomfortable. Because here comes a brutal truth. If your greatness makes someone uncomfortable, that someone was never with you, only with the reduced version that suited them. And the sooner you accept it, the sooner you'll be free. Jung didn't talk about being good. He talked about being whole, about embracing your light and your darkness, your compassion and your ambition, your love and your rage, your real humility and your hidden pride. Everything, no filters, no disguises, because only when you stop acting do you start living. But right now, you're on a stage, playing a role they taught you since you were a child. The good one, the quiet one, the correct one, the one who doesn't bother, the one who doesn't stand out. And while you act, others rule, because the world belongs to those who don't pretend. Do you realize the damage you're doing to yourself? Every time someone praises you and you deny it, you're saying, "I'm not worth it." Every time you achieve something and minimize it, you're teaching your unconscious that success is dangerous, that you shouldn't call attention, that you shouldn't shine. And that's how you sabotage yourself, over and over again. Do you know what Jung would say about that? That you have built a false self, a socially accepted character but psychologically empty, a mask of humility that covers a withered soul. And for what? To please? Whom? People who don't even dare look at themselves in the mirror? True humility isn't hiding. It's recognizing your worth without needing to shout it, but also without denying it. And you deny it constantly, out of fear, out of trauma, out of conditioning, and meanwhile, your shadow grows. Do you know what happens when you don't integrate your shadow? It possesses you. It manifests without you realizing it. It starts to sabotage you. It sabotages your decisions, your relationships, your dreams, because your shadow is tired of you denying it. And one day it explodes, and it does so in ways you can't control. Anxiety, apathy, envy, frustration, insomnia, dependency. Because what you repress doesn't disappear. It rots inside. And that's what's happening to you. You're rotten inside from so much pretending, from so much containing, from so much pretending a humility that isn't real, because deep down you know you are more. And that knowledge, when repressed, turns into self-hatred. The one who denies himself ends up hating himself. And that hatred is consuming you. It makes you small, insecure, irrelevant, and worst of all, manipulable. Because the one who doesn't know their worth is always at the mercy of those who do. Do you get it now? Your false humility isn't a virtue. It's a self-destruction strategy. A slow but steady psychological suicide. And only you can stop it. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Your destiny is not to be invisible. It's that you've believed that the right thing is not to bother, not to stand out, not to be too much, but enough. You're not here to please. You're here to transform. And you can't transform anything if you deny yourself. So stop pretending to be humble. Because you're not. And that's good. Because if you were, you wouldn't be suffering. You wouldn't have this emptiness, this rage, this feeling of wasting your life. That discomfort is your shadow screaming, begging you to see it, to integrate it, to give it space. And when you do, something magical will happen. You will feel whole at last. And then, you won't need to pretend anything, neither humility nor power. You will just be you, without masks, without fear. And that's where true freedom begins. But it all starts with a brutally uncomfortable decision. Stop pretending to be humble, and dare to be who you've always been. No excuses, no apologies, no shame, just you. Whole, awake, unstoppable. And then, when you finally dare to let go of that false humility, you think everything's fixed. But no, that's where the real battle begins. Because now you have no excuses. Now you face an even fiercer enemy. It's not other people's opinions. It's not your environment's judgment. It's something much more dangerous. Your need for validation. And this is where everything gets dark. Have you noticed that even when you allow yourself to shine, you need someone to confirm it? Someone to applaud? Someone to recognize it? You stopped pretending humility, yes, but now you've chained yourself to something else. External approval. And this is what no one tells you. Validation is a drug. Subtle, treacherous, socially accepted, but addictive like no other. It starts with a small dose. A compliment, a message, a look of admiration, and you feel alive, important, finally seen. But then you need another, and another, and another. And without realizing it, you're back in a prison. You no longer pretend humility, now you pretend confidence. You pretend you do everything for yourself, when in reality, you do everything to feel that approval again. And here's the trap. When you do things for approval, you lose your essence. You shape yourself according to what's liked, what's applauded, what's expected. You become a reflection of what others want to see. And that, even if disguised as success, is another form of slavery. Remember what Jung said? What you don't make conscious controls you. And if you don't make your need for validation conscious, you will end up as an emotional puppet. And the worst is that it will be hard for you to realize it. Because the system rewards that behavior. It gives you likes, followers, attention. But what it doesn't give you is freedom. And here's another brutal irony. External validation is not free. It has a price. Every applause you seek costs you a part of yourself. Every compliment you need pulls you away from your center. Because you're no longer acting from your authenticity, but from fear of no longer being liked. And so, without realizing it, you go from being the one who shined out of fear to the one who shines out of obligation, out of need, out of dependence. And do you know what happens when you don't get the dose you expect? You collapse. You feel like you've failed, like you're not enough. And that leads you to a vicious cycle of self-demand, overproduction, mental exhaustion. Because the one who depends on applause can never rest. They always have to be performing. They always have to be proving something. That's not success. That's torture. And here's the wildest point. The system teaches you to seek recognition, but never teaches you to validate yourself. Because if it did, you would be free. And a free person isn't controlled, isn't manipulated, isn't directed from outside. That's why the system prefers that you pretend humility. Because the false humble person doesn't bother, doesn't question, doesn't break the order. And if they stop pretending, at least let them need applause to feel alive. That way they remain predictable. That way they remain useful. Society fears those who don't need anything. Those who don't pretend to be less, but also don't ask to be more. Those who are simply themselves. Without fear, without hunger for approval, without the need to please. Because those are dangerous. Those can't be bought. Those can't be sold. Those won't shut up. And that is the real revolution. Stop pretending humility and at the same time, stop begging for recognition. Be centered. Do what you do because it comes from you, not because someone expects it. Do you know what that feels like? Silence. Peace. A rare peace. Intense. Uncomfortable at first, because you're used to noise, to reaction, to immediate feedback. But that silence is your home. That's where the real begins. That's where there are no more masks. And there, for the first time in your life, you face the authentic loneliness of being you. Not the loneliness of being without people, but the loneliness of being without applause, without approval, without mirrors telling you who you are. That's where you build yourself, where you decide who you will be, not based on what is rewarded, but on what you choose. And here comes the brutal question. Who would you be if no one could applaud you? What would you do if you knew no one would ever recognize you? If the answer scares you, it's because you're not free yet. And that is the goal. Not success, not recognition, not praise. Freedom. That brutal freedom to do, create, move, without needing to pretend humility or seek validation. Just you, with yourself. Whole, without emotional hunger. And then, when you get there, something changes. Your presence is no longer negotiable. Your power no longer depends on the environment. Your energy no longer filters through the desire to be liked. You become someone solid, someone who doesn't move by reflex, but by conviction, and the world starts to spin differently around you. Not because you changed the world, but because you finally stopped adapting to it. Carl Jung knew it. That's why he said the process of individuation, becoming yourself, is deeply lonely, deeply uncomfortable, and deeply transformative. But you can't start it if you keep clinging to that false humility, nor if you enslave yourself to validation. You have to let go of everything. Everything. And trust that when there's nothing left to pretend, what emerges is authentic. It's you, without ornaments, without disguises, without masks. That's where real life begins. Are you willing to live it? But of course, just when you think you've escaped the trap of false humility and addiction to validation, something else appears. Something deeper, older, more rooted in you than you'd like to admit. An invisible pattern that's accompanied you since you have memory. And it's this: fear of your own power. Yes, you heard that right. It's not that you can't be great. It's that you fear what would happen if you were. Have you ever wondered why, when you're about to achieve something important, something inside sabotages you? Why you procrastinate just when you should act? Why you doubt right when you need clarity the most? It's no coincidence. It's your unconscious activating the emergency brake. Why? Because you associated power with pain, with betrayal, with loss. Because at some point in your life, maybe in childhood, maybe without realizing it, you learned that when you shone, something broke. That when you showed your truth, someone walked away. That when you stood out, someone suffered. And that marked you. And now, even though you say you want more, a part of you shrinks every time you approach that. That more, that power, that fullness that deep down you feel you don't deserve, or that will bring consequences. And it's not your fault. It's a defense system, an ancient mechanism your mind created to protect you. But what once saved you now imprisons you. And here comes something uncomfortable. That fear of your power doesn't show up in big moments. It shows up in the details, in how you talk about yourself, in how you present yourself, in how, even when you achieve something important, you give credit to luck, to others, to circumstances, never to yourself. Do you know what that means? That you get dizzy being the protagonist of your own story. And that, more than fear, is an emotional amputation. Because you can't build anything solid if you're running away from yourself. And here comes a word that almost no one dares to name. Responsibility. not the boring, moralistic responsibility of doing what you should. I'm talking about the radical responsibility of owning what you are, what you think, what you feel, what you could be if you stop hiding. That is the toughest responsibility, because it forces you to look yourself in the face. No excuses, no guilt, no detours. And when you do, you discover something no one prepared you to face. The monster you were afraid of was you. But not as an enemy, as unused potential. That potential you avoided to not make others uncomfortable, to not fail, to not lose anyone. And here comes the brutal twist. The more you avoid it, the more damage you do. To yourself and to the world. Because every time you decide to stay in the mold, the world loses something only you could have contributed. That's what no one told you. That your power is not only your right, it's your duty. And it's not about ego, it's about impact. Because your existence isn't neutral. Every time you speak, you affect. Every time you decide not to move, someone loses a reference. Every time you stay silent, another remains trapped in their doubts, not knowing you had the answer. And yes, it may sound exaggerated, but it's not. Or do you think big changes are always made by the visible ones, the famous, the ones with thousands of eyes on them? Often, change starts with a silent gesture, a word said at the right moment, an apparently small decision that changes everything. But for that, you need to be present, not hidden, not pretending humility, not enslaved by fear. You need real presence, and that presence only comes when you stop avoiding yourself. Do you know what's the most absurd thing about all this? That for years they told you to be careful about being too much, too intense, too ambitious, too honest, too you, and you believed it. But no one told you that the problem wasn't being too much. The problem was being surrounded by people who were too little, and you turned down your volume so as not to bother. But by doing that, you dimmed yourself. And now turning that volume back up is scary because you don't know who will leave. You don't know what relationships you'll lose, what comfort zones will explode. But let me tell you something. That fear is a good sign. That fear is your compass. If it's not scary, it's not authentic. If it doesn't make you uncomfortable, you're not growing. If it doesn't tear off layers, you're not transforming. And here we go back to Jung. Jung said that the process of individuation isn't a straight line, it's a cyclical journey. A fall inward, a symbolic death, a crisis, and then a rebirth. But that rebirth only happens when you're willing to face your fear of power. Because you can't be yourself until you reconcile with what you can become. And that changes everything, because then you no longer pretend humility. You don't need it. You no longer seek approval. You don't need it. You no longer run from your power. You direct it, and you use it, not to impose yourself, not to feel superior. You use it to create, to open paths, to move the world, to change a conversation, to break chains that no one dared touch. And that is what truly frees you. Not success, not recognition, not money, the authentic power that emanates from you when you stop fearing yourself. That power doesn't shout, doesn't boast. And now that we've made it this far, before we continue, I want to present the following to you. Our book, The Formula of Awakening, is now available. Do you feel like there's something inside you that wants to awaken, but you don't know where to start? Then I invite you to transform your way of thinking, and with it, your way of living. Discover who you can become. Start today. The link to get the ebook is in the first pinned comment of this video. Grab your copy now at a great price. With that said, let's continue with the video. Doesn't need applause. That power simply exists. And everything around it feels it, because real power isn't in what you do. It's in who you are when no one is watching. when you don't pretend, when you don't decorate, when you don't lower your head. And that's where true respect begins. Not the one they give you, the one you decide to have for yourself. Because when you respect yourself, the world starts doing the same. Not because you deserve it, not because you demand it, but because you emit such solid energy. There's no other option. And then, you no longer pretend. You no longer beg. You no longer run. You no longer hide. You just walk. Firm, whole, complete. And that, for a system built on insecurity, is the most threatening thing there is. Someone who doesn't need permission to be themselves. And having come this far, if you've endured until here, it's no coincidence. Something inside you knew it. That this message was for you. That there was something you've been avoiding, hiding, burying under layers of false humility, borrowed validation, recycled fears. But you can no longer look away. Not anymore. Because when you truly realize, the enemy was never the world, but that domesticated version of yourself you decided to keep alive. Something breaks. And when it breaks, everything starts to fit. And yes, you might feel lost. You might think, now what? What do I do with this truth that burns, that bothers me, that no longer lets me sleep? The answer isn't easy, because there's no single path. But there is a brutal certainty. You can't go back. You can't unsee what you've already seen. You can't keep pretending you're okay living with the volume turned down. Not anymore. Because now you know it's not about being liked, or fitting in, or pretending goodness through self-denial. It's about reclaiming what's yours. Your voice, your energy, your impact, your truth. Not with shouting, not with ego, with presence, with firmness, with brutal integrity. And this, listen closely, is not a passing motivation. It's an invitation to be reborn, to drop the extra role you accepted out of fear of being the protagonist, to stop measuring every word with the filter of what others will think. Because if you're going to live in fear, let it be the fear of wasting your existence, not the fear of shining. So here's the real ending. The moment you decide to stop waiting, the moment you understand that you don't need to be more to start, that you already are everything, but buried under tons of conditioning, and your only task is to dig yourself out. And that, my friend, isn't an easy task, but it's the only one worth doing. So go out there, not to prove anything, but to remind yourself who you were before the world taught you to pretend. And before you close this video, I challenge you. In the comments, write this phrase: "My shadow no longer controls me." I want to see how many of those who got this far are ready to stop hiding. I want to see how many have understood that integrating your shadow isn't weakness. It's the first step toward your real power. And if something stirred inside you, even if just a crack in your armor, subscribe. Because here you won't find empty formulas or pretty phrases. Here we talk about what burns, what transforms, what you can't tell anyone, but need to hear. See you in the next video. Or maybe not. Because if you do what you have to do, maybe the next time someone sees you, you won't be the same. You'll be you. No filters, no chains, no permission, and when that happens, no one will be able to stop your presence. End of the game. Beginning of your story.